I got to say, credit to you. You're really the only person who's had even a name or two that the Jets have reached out to. You said Chad Henne they've inquired about. Break it down for us.
They're in a really interesting position in the sense that everything that they had scheduled is now completely off the tracks. But what they do have is a contingency plan in Zach Wilson, a guy they drafted number 2 overall, who's still very young, who's still very talented. They have made it abundantly clear that he's the guy without Aaron Rodgers. So where does that leave them? It leaves them with wanting a veteran quarterback who can either step in and be a guidance guy that can help Zach, someone that can run the offense if something were to happen to Zach, maybe familiarity with the offense, and that's where you see the Chad Henne connection going back to his Jacksonville days with Nathaniel Hackett. I think Carson Wentz is another name to watch out for. Obviously, former All-Pro in 2017, former MVP candidate. Things did not end well in Washington, but I know he really wants to play, and I know he's really open to being the number 2 guy. So there are some quarterbacks, veteran quarterbacks on the market. I just, I would be really, really surprised based on what we've seen, what we've been told, if it's not Zach Wilson all the way, the rest of the way.
How much do they prioritize someone who knows Nathaniel Hackett's offense in New York? Say Carson Wentz, I don't know if he has any background in that kind of offense, but it seems like, to me, and Maggie and I have been arguing, it's a heavy lift to learn a whole new system mid-season.
It's extremely hard it's hard enough to go through camp and learn a new system in your first year. You fast forward a month, 2 months, and you don't have any of camp, and now all of a sudden you're the number 2. You're one play away, as we saw with Zach Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, from being on an NFL field in a regular season game. It's really hard. Now, that's the idea of bringing in a veteran who understands, A, the language of Nathaniel Hackett. That's why I mentioned Chad Henne, even though he himself is pushing 40 but just retired. You want to bring in a veteran who understands at least basic principles. If you bring in another young quarterback, I think it sends the wrong message to Zach. I think it sends the wrong message to the entire 53 that we don't believe in him. Wilson was lauded throughout camp for his maturity, his ability to really buy in as the backup to Aaron Rodgers. And I think he learned a lot from Aaron. I can tell you that they have a great relationship, and Rodgers is going to do what he can. I don't know what that means yet. It's so early in the process, but he's going to do what he can to help guide Zach. It'd be great to have another veteran there who's been around the block, who's been around the carousel, that can not only understand the language, but understand his purpose, his role. That's why you see someone like a Chad Henne come to mind. I mentioned Carson Wentz, someone that has had success to a degree, but also isn't necessarily a threat.
Jordan Schultz is joining us, NFL Insider. With Carson Wentz, I never thought that it was ability. I mean, he clearly still has some. It's everything else, like that he was unpopular, reportedly, in some locker rooms, and that could be part of the issue.
So I've actually asked around. I think my kids are, you're going to have to come back. Sorry, guys.
Go to the air fryer and turn it on.
Hockey practice about 5:30. Hi, I'm on the TV. You got to come back. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Love you. You look beautiful. Okay.
Sorry, kids. Aw.
Yeah, it's the first week of school, second week of school. We're still getting the schedules right. Andrew, you know about this, Maggie.
Listen, we're both parents. We get it.
Okay, so, and I normally lock the office. That's on me. I didn't lock it. So that's
remember that? Remember in the pandemic, that guy, who had the kid come in?
And yes.
We could have had that moment, Jordan. Just blew it. Let the kid come in.
Randy, come back. Yeah. Trust me, there'll be other opportunities. That's a revolving door. But here's the thing with Wentz, and I'm so glad you asked it, Maggie, because we know he's really talented. He's 32. He obviously had a great couple of years in Philly. But here's what I'll tell you. I've asked former teammates, specifically someone like Logan Thomas, who spent time with him in Washington. I wanted to know why is Carson Wentz being labeled as this when you're telling me he's that? And I think what really happened in Washington was he had a couple really bad games. He got typecasted in Indianapolis as someone that maybe wasn't a great teammate. But I've asked enough players, quarterbacks, offensive players, defensive players, is Carson Wentz someone that can help stabilize the locker room? And I'm telling you, I get the answer yes repeatedly. And I've asked enough guys, too, from different teams. And I mentioned Logan Thomas because I think he's a respected enough veteran where I really take his word for it. I've also talked to coaches. So I don't buy into that. I can tell you I've also heard that. But I also know that Carson Wentz, at this stage in his career, is very comfortable coming in as a number 2 and maybe helping stabilize the situation with Zach.
Jordan, how do you think the Jets feel about looking at guys who are on rosters they'd have to give up a draft pick for? Is there anyone out there that they might be really interested giving up a mid-round pick for?
I floated around the name yesterday, not from a reporting standpoint, but just started asking around someone like a Ryan Tannehill, because obviously, he didn't play well in week one. He didn't have a good year last year, but he has had some success as the starting quarterback, basically someone that you know what you're getting. The floor is probably higher than the ceiling, but you can at least trust him to win you games. And I was told they haven't reached out about Tannehill yet, but perhaps week 6, week 8, if they're struggling, they're 500, they haven't really clicked, maybe then they would go after someone like a Tannehill or another established veteran like that. But basically, the answer that I've gotten, at least at this point, Andrew, is that the Jets really are committed to Zach Wilson. And part of the reason they brought in Aaron Rodgers, aside from everything else, was that they wanted someone for Zach to lean on, and that's exactly what he did. So I would be surprised at this point if they gave up any draft capital to go out and get someone like a Tannehill. But I can tell you that there is no doubt in the next couple of days they would like to have their definitive backup quarterback found.
Jordan Schultz joining us, NFL Insider. Last one for me, Jordan. It's not about Rodgers. Moving to something else, the Chris Jones holdout.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's finally back with the team. They've got a big game at Jacksonville. It's going to be a fun one for the Chiefs. Was this worth it for Chris Jones?
To me, you're talking about a perennial All-Pro who's 29 years old. This is his third contract, his most important contract. They don't win those 2 Super Bowls without Chris Jones. When they needed a great play defensively, it was Chris Jones. We talk obviously a lot about Mahomes, about Kelsey. They have a rising star, Nick Bolton, linebacker. But Chris Jones is the heartbeat of that entire defense, and he has a domino effect. For him to hold out and incur $2.5 million in fines, he can get it back. I think the threshold is 15 sacks. There's some team success I'm sure they'll reach. He'll get those incentives. I just hope that at this stage in his career, next year, he doesn't get tagged, because he could still get tagged. They didn't negotiate a non-tag. And I just got the sense that the GM, Brett Veach, when he made his statement to reporters, was pretty happy with how things turned out, because he gets his superstar back. He doesn't give him the long-term deal. Now, we can debate yes or no. They should have given him the deal. But to me, for Chris Jones to hold out and get those fines, I just really hope, Maggie, that he gets all of them back and gets that money back. Because if he were to get tagged next year, then he's going to be 31 searching for a deal and not 30 or 29 like he is now. So I don't know the answer to that yet, but I was surprised. I had gotten wind of it about a day, 2 days before, that Chris Jones was thinking about coming back, but not an extension. And I was surprised by that. And ultimately, I would love to see him get paid. I think we all would.
Jordan, you're lucky we're out of time, because I have a bunch of questions about the Seattle.
Come on, let's go. What else you got?
What happened to your Seattle Seahawks? That's what I was going to say. I
got a Russell Wilson signed helmet here. I think I showed you this once before.
Yeah. I mean, that was.
I should have come on with my own contingency plan. No Seahawks talk. You see, I got like Ken Griffey. No Mariners talk. I shouldn't have done it. It was a bad game. I can tell you, the Rams always play Seattle tough.
Oh, okay.
He's a great coach. And I do want to give a special shout out to my guy, Puka Nacua, at a BYU late-round pick. He is a really good player, 15 targets, 10 catches. He is a star. It was an aberration, Andrew. You got to give at least 3 or 4 games, a quarter of the season, to make a true statement about a team.
Should Jets fans even fantasize about Matthew Stafford? Is that a possibility in even the wildest dreams?
No, I don't think so. And the reason I say that is not because they wouldn't want him. A lot of teams would want Matthew Stafford. I think he's got a chance to be a Hall of Famer, and he looked phenomenal, healthy against Seattle. You see how good he is with a clean pocket. He didn't have Cooper Kupp, but he was really good. I asked a couple Seattle DBs about him. They just said the guy has as good an arm as anyone still at this stage in his career, well into his 30s. I would be shocked if he was traded anywhere, let alone the Jets, just because I know last year did not sit right for Sean McVay and Les Snead, the GM. Sean McVay has a tremendous amount of pull as a head coach, as much as anyone, alongside like a Bill Belichick, a Pete Carroll. They really believe, the Rams do, and we'll see if it's true or not, but the Rams genuinely believe, and Andrew and Maggie, that they can rebound from last year and become a playoff team, especially when Kupp comes off IR.
Jordan, I'm sorry, but Perloff has already claimed Puka Nacua as his guy, so he can't be your guy and his guy.
Our buddy, I'm sure your friend Jim Nagy of the Senior Bowl is out there, been talking about Puka Nacua for 5 months.
Forever?
So I one day before the show, I called Nagy. I'm like, give me somebody to talk about it. He said, Puka Nacua should not have followed, but he's great.
He is awesome. He's an example of why you don't put all the stock into 40s, combines, pro days. Didn't run so fast, but he's a really good player. The reason I knew about him is not because I'm a good scout. I'm a terrible talent evaluator.
Yeah.
Trent McDuffie, who's a young star corner on the Chiefs, was at Washington. I was talking to him actually at his pro day himself a couple of years ago, and we were talking about receivers that he had seen. And he told me there's a guy at BYU named Puka Nacua. He's going to be a star. And I looked at him. I said, really? He was right. Puka Nacua is going to be a star. And I like what they're doing. They got Van Jefferson. They got Nacua, Tutu Atwell. Thought Cam Akers ran well. So I was impressed by the Rams. One game, but impressive.